and we're recording in progress.
Now, Brooke, you mentioned something about. I
What?
got some visuals while you're gone. I got a surprise for you. I just
You
grabbed
got a
something here.
surprise. Okay.
Okay. You mentioned like something on the Beatles jackets at Shea Stadium that they were wearing. You
You got
mentioned
that.
that.
Oh my God. Oh,
Right,
okay.
right
Well,
there. Got some
well,
badges. So
yeah. Of course,
that's what they were wearing. And you know the story behind this. They were legitimately Wells Fargo agents during
right.
that concert. Yes.
Yes.
They'd
Yes.
been deputized. So
Yes.
I always thought that was fun.
But that collection that you have has got the three pins.
Yes.
But they weren't wearing that. They were just wearing the
No, no, no,
Wells
no.
Fargo badge.
I take this to my programs. I do a
This is a
memorabilia display.
collection. I see. It's a
Yeah,
collection. Yeah.
so those are original from 1964. Then I got
Yeah.
the badge as a replica, of course.
The
But
badge is so cool. It is
yeah, it
just,
is.
it really is. Yeah.
Sometimes
Well,
I'll wear it on my jacket when I'm doing something. I'll say, "Oh yeah," and then plus they when I'll pull a jacket over and
oh,
I got
you
the
have
badge.
how many badges do you have?
No, just one. I just display it. This isn't a display right now. I'm
That's
doing a program. I'm doing a program next Thursday at a library. It's a big program. I have a memorabilia display. They paid me extra to bring this. So I
nice.
have all kinds of stuff that relates to the Shea Stadium concert and the Beatles in general. Matter of fact, if you want me to continue talking, I can tell you a very rare story that I don't, unless you read my book, I can tell you a story about the Shea Stadium Beatles in New York that you probably don't know.
Well, try me.
Yeah. Okay. Now you know they were on Saturday afternoon, August 14th, 1965. They went to the CBS studios, now the Ed Sullivan Theater, and they filmed their next appearance on the Ed Sullivan Show. Wasn't going to
Mhm.
be shown until September 12th, after Yesterday came out because nobody knew the song over here yesterday. Anyway, when they finished filming, they did two shows. They went back to the Warwick Hotel and then they snuck out. You know, it was surrounded by fans outside. Cousin Brucey said it was like Times Square on New Year's Eve. The Beatles snuck out and they went over to Rockefeller Center. And, you know, the building over there, 30 Rock, on the top, they've got this fancy restaurant called the Rainbow Room.
And they went there.
They went there. Now, I'll tell you, I got proof. I got proof. I'm the only one that has this proof. And across the street was Radio City Music Hall, okay? Home of the high kicking Radio City Music Hall Rockettes. The girls,
One of your cousins?
my cousin Mimi Schwensen was a Rockette in
Wow.
1965. She had a date that night. A guy picked her up at the stage door. She said, "Where are we going?" He goes, "We're going across the street for dinner at the Rainbow Room." And she said, "That's great. That's where all the Rockettes go to have something to eat." So we just walked across the street, got in the elevator, went up to the Rainbow Room, door opened up, and there were the four Beatles, Brian, I'm sure Mal and Neil were there, and then a bunch of these guys or women, executives from Capitol Records. The guy she had a date with worked for Capitol Records. So she met all four Beatles. She sat at dinner next to Ringo Starr. Excuse me. At dinner, she told Ringo Starr that she had a 12-year-old cousin in Ohio who was a big Beatles fan.
You.
So
Wow.
she gave him, she had her Radio City Music Hall Rockette rehearsal schedule. That's the proof. He took it, he tore off a square, he signed Ringo Starr, he gave it to her. So a month later, on September 12th, when the Beatles were going to be shown on the Ed Sullivan Show, we were visiting. She was in Ohio. We were a close family. We were visiting. And I said, you know, we'd have VCRs then. We didn't have anything to tape these shows. I said,
Right.
I got to get home. The Beatles are on tonight. I'm going to watch the Beatles. She goes, oh my gosh, I almost forgot. I have something for you. So we went in her kitchen. She opened up her purse. She handed me this little folded piece of paper. I opened it up. It said Ringo Starr. My cousin now is 85 years old. She still teaches tap dancing. Okay, she teaches seniors. She teaches choreography for ice skaters. I'm telling you, this is the truth. She can still kick her foot over her head. She does it
Wow.
every Christmas. Anyway, I looked at this piece of paper. I said to her then what I say to her now. Why did you get the other three? I could have retired by now. Anyway, this is the Ringo Starr autograph. Okay.
Oh,
That's
On
awesome.
the on the
is that
back
on?
of it, on the
Is,
back of it is the Rockette rehearsal schedule. So that's my
so
proof right there.
is that on what material is that on, David?
What do you mean? What material? Piece of paper is a Rockette piece of
Oh,
paper.
it's a piece of
I have it
paper.
framed.
It's a piece
Yeah,
of
it's
paper.
just
Yeah.
yeah, it's just her rehearsal schedule. Like you do a show or something to give you a rehearsal schedule for the
So
week.
you got Ringo Starr's autograph. He doesn't do autographs anymore, by the way, as you probably know.
Yeah, I heard that. But I
Yeah.
got this one. And really, it would have been so cool if she gotten all four. But she honestly, she was about the same age as the Beatles now, you know, maybe a couple of years older. And she thought they were for the kids. She really wasn't into it all that much. She had a
She
nice
went.
dinner. She said Ringo was real nice. She didn't care for John.
I
Um,
didn't care for John Lennon.
no.
Oh, that
And
John. No, he's such a twat.
yeah. Her exact words. I shouldn't say this, but her words at the time, I always remember this. She said, "Yeah, John Lennon. If he wasn't in the Beatles, he'd be sticking up gas stations."
Well,
Okay,
he was a tough guy.
that's what she told me.
Yeah,
Anyway,
he was a tough guy, as we know. I mean, he was, the whole thing with his background and his mother and his
yes. Oh,
father and
yes. Yeah.
all that
But
stuff.
I
It's
always like to
interesting.
share that story because
No, it's a great story.
yeah, I've
Listen,
never read it in anyone else's book, and really
no,
because they don't have the autograph, they don't have the stuff that I have here.
no, that is truly a one of a kind situation. Thanks for sharing that with us. We appreciate it.
I
Okay.
should, yeah, I'll be sharing it next week with my library gig. I take it in with me.
Yeah. No,
I
that's
walk
great.
around, I hold it up, and everybody looks at this, goes, "Yeah."
Yeah, no, that's absolutely it's extraordinary, certainly, because it is not ordinary at all.
Uh-uh.
And you course, when Sid Bernstein did to Coming, The Rascals Are Coming, you know that Brian was not happy about that, and Brian actually had it removed on the scoreboard, which
Hmm.
was a very powerful. I mean, Brian was a very powerful guy at that time, and Sid was very powerful as well. So it was, all these powerful guys were all working together, and Sid was trying to promote the Young Rascals. So that's what he was trying, but it didn't work out for Sid.
Hmm.
No, no.
Yeah, Brian was kind of known for that. At the Cleveland show in 1966, there was a house trailer, a luxury house trailer behind the stage that was their dressing room. And the people that brought this trailer, I mean, they had it all decked out. I've been in it. It still exists, but it's not in great shape. But originally they were called Sahara Mobile Homes. So they had a big
Uh-huh.
sign on top said Sahara Mobile Homes. And
Yeah.
Brian made them take it down. And they were ticked off about that. Yeah, you
No
cannot
free,
promote.
no free advertising. That's what that's
No.
all. Yeah,
Mm-mm.
yeah, yeah. So, okay. Well, I'm just out of curiosity, since we're talking about 65 and the 65 tour, which of course was, in my opinion, your best tour. I mean, 64 was a very successful tour because it was the first time touring
Hmm.
America. And a good friend of mine, a close buddy of mine, actually, Ivor Davis, who you probably know.
I
Uh,
was a booth next to him at one of the Beatle Fests. He was signing books on the table. I was at the table next to him. Very nice
next
man.
month,
I really like him.
yeah,
Good
he's a
guy.
super cool cat. Yeah. And he was on tour with the Beatles in 64 and 65. So I know a lot about 64, and we're talking about 65 though. 66 it was really the end, and they did it anyway. To be perfectly honest with you, I don't think any of them really wanted to do it, but that was one of the main activities that Brian had. His job was to keep them playing out live, doing concerts and doing shows. Because otherwise, when the Beatles were in the recording studio, Brian had nothing to do because that was all George Martin's turf and everything. So I don't, and then the whole thing about Jesus, the Beatles are more popular than Jesus, and then going out and then doing the tour in '66, and then what happened in the Philippines. It was just a terrible, terrible tour, the '66 tour. So let's not talk about that, except they went to Cleveland again in
They went to
'66.
Cleveland.
And,
They had to
and
do
now,
that tour because that's how they made their money. They were a live performing act. And
yeah, but
when they signed their contract, original contract, they didn't get a good deal like say like the Rolling Stones got.
well, that's
Any of that
true.
stuff.
But at this point in '66, their records, I mean, they were making money from their recordings. Certainly, John and Paul as writers were
Hmm.
most certainly making their money as writers. But they
But
had
yeah,
it's a
that
good
touring
thing,
money was important.
it's a good thing that they did come to Cleveland because otherwise you may not have seen them. Correct?
Right. They
Uh,
almost didn't come to Cleveland. The date I saw them on August 14th, they'd been booked in Louisville, Kentucky. And when I was writing the book, I'm like, well, what happened? So I called the promoter down. I got in touch with him. He said the Beatles were so big after Shea Stadium, 55,000, 60,000 fans. They didn't have a place big enough to put them because the racetrack was booked. State Fair was already going on. They didn't have, so they had to give up the date. So the promoters in New York, General Artists Corporation, called the guys in Cleveland who now had their own radio. It's a long story. Their own radio station. They got the band lifted. They went to City Hall. They got the band lifted. So that's how I wound up seeing the Beatles. I was very fortunate. They were had an off day and they had to fill it. They filled it in Cleveland.
so then you saw the Circle as well, then, right?
I just talked to yeah, the circle for my updated book I'm doing. And Don, I talked to Don. That's why I couldn't think of my name for a minute. Just talked to him like about 6 months ago or something. Yeah, saw the circle and Bobby Hebb and the Ronettes without Ronnie Spector. A lot of people don't know this. They saw the Ronettes. Ronnie was not on the tour. She was engaged to Phil Spector at the time. He was nuts. He didn't want to let her out of the house because he thought she'd have an affair with John Lennon. So he locked her in, and they got their cousin Elaine to take her place. And Nedra sang all the lead vocals on that. And also a group out of Boston called the Remains.
The Remains, yeah.
Yes.
But the
Barry
circle,
Tashian and Bill Briggs. Yeah.
the circle of the Red Rubber Ball was their big hit. Yeah.
Yes. And during the tour in 1966, Bobby Hebb actually had the number one song in the country. It was Sunny.
Yeah.
The Beatles didn't have the number one song yet.
That's right.
I mean, Yellow Submarine was just coming out. They didn't get the number ones after the tour.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so Tom, why don't you take it over? Maybe some questions for David while we have him?
Yeah, I get the easy questions. So the questions is basically, well, what would be your favorite Beatle album?
Oh, I mean, I
That's a
would say
hard
we
question.
Mm-hmm.
were just talking about A Hard Day's Night and Help, and I would say that's my favorite era of the Beatles. Then again, yesterday I was listening to Abbey Road. I'm like, this is the best album of all time. But then you go back to the very beginning. I mean, the first album I had was introducing the Beatles, the Please
Yeah.
Please Me album, my Twist and Shout. I mean, I go on and on. I cannot answer. And Revolver was what they were touring behind when I saw them. So the next day I went out and bought Revolver. I
Yeah.
mean, my gosh. So yeah, I can't answer that question. It's like saying, what's your favorite Beatles song?
Mhm.
Right.
Oh, it's like the comics. Which one did I hear last? I like that one.
I've been listening to the intro introducing the Beatles recently,
Yes.
and I really love that. Like, let's put an album out in a day. It's so
Mhm.
raw, and I wish they had that entry point where they're able to get another album out of them. There was a lot of covers that George, ran. That would have been nice to have something raw like that before they get
Yeah.
more polished.
Well,
Yeah,
those were all their live songs. They've been playing them for thousands of times. So they just went in and played them like they would at the Cavern.
yeah, with their eyes closed.
Yeah.
I don't have any other questions.
Oh, okay.
Well, can I tell you another little story then you might be interested in?
Well,
Sure.
let me jump in here because I've got
Okay.
a couple more questions.
Okay.
You mentioned that when the Beatles were doing the 66 tour, that, Revolver was released, I know it was released in August of 66. I
I
do
think it's August 11th or something like that.
somewhere around there. Yeah. But because of the advances that they had made in the recording studio when they recorded Revolver, that when they went to do their tour in 66, they couldn't play Eleanor Rigby. They couldn't play Tomorrow Never Knows. They couldn't play Got to Get You to My Left. They couldn't play. The only thing that they possibly could have done was maybe Yellow Submarine, but that's all filled with sound effects
Yeah.
and marching band stuff. So there was really nothing that they could play live from that album. So they were still playing songs. As a matter of fact, as you know, the closing number on the 66 tour was Long Tall Sally, which they've been forever.
Yeah, the newest song they did was Paperback Writer.
Yeah, they
And
did.
at that time and Nowhere Man was
Yeah, they did
already
Nowhere
kind of an
Man.
oldie by then. Yeah, that they really couldn't, they didn't have the technology.
That's
And
right.
even when I talk about how good they sound, and by the way, here's another story for you. Seeing the Beatles live, they sounded great. A lot of people say, "Oh, I never heard them. You couldn't hear because of the screaming." Well, all the people I interviewed for my books, we all kind of had the same thing. It's like the girls could not hear them. And you know why? It's like you ever ride one of those huge roller coasters, you come down the hill and you're screaming your head off, like, oh my, and you can't hear anything but yourself screaming. That's what the
Yeah.
girls were doing. The
Sure.
guys, unless they were sitting next to a pack of girls screaming. Now I've heard that the ones in the upper deck at Shea, they said third uh, mezzanine, whatever it is, they couldn't hear anything. I heard the Beatles, they sounded great. And the other ones I've talked to, my male friends or whatever, were not screaming. They sounded great. Even Paperback Writer, I mean, you've heard the bootlegs. I mean, it's the best they could do in 1966. They had no monitors. They
Right.
couldn't hear
Right.
themselves.
Right.
They were just
Yeah.
playing out of instinct.
Yeah.
John, Paul, and George could hear the amplifiers. They could hear the guitars behind them. The vocals were all coming out of speakers down the first and third bass lines because they wanted to get that feedback. And Ringo was sitting behind all of them. He couldn't hear anything. And of
Right.
course, the famous story is
Which-
Ringo said he played to their butts shaking, their heads
That's right.
bobbing. And Paul
That's
McCartney
right.
said, "What song did you play?" And Ringo told him, and Paul said, "Well, we didn't even play that song."
Yeah.
So, you know, but they
Also,
sounded great.
the other song on that tour, I believe, was George's "If I Needed Someone,"
Yeah.
which is
Hmm.
really a beautiful song. So that
It
was
really
nice
is.
that George
That's
got a song in there. Yeah.
that's the one that went wild in Cleveland. That was the third song. They finished that, and the fans were running, gathering by the field, and then they played Day Tripper, and they started jumping over the fences and everything, and 3,000 kids rushed the stage. The police
They
couldn't stop them.
they played Day Tripper on 66?
Yeah, yeah. Fourth song was Day Tripper, and after that, by the time I always say, by the time they finished Day Tripper, the stage was filled with police, fans, and Beatles. I mean, I've got pictures of this. You know, they're just the stage is packed, and then that's where they pulled the Beatles off the stage and put them in a house trailer for their own safety. And they stopped the show for a while to get all these kids to go back, and they were going to stop the show. They're going to stop it, and they went in the trailer and said, "Okay, we're going to get you guys out of here." And John Lennon says, "No, we're going to finish the show." And everyone's like, "What?" And they came back out and they finished the show. They told the kids to get out of your seats. This will be it. So they finished their show, and of course the Beatles never did an encore. They were like Elvis. Elvis has left the building. Beatles not doing an
Oh
encore.
yeah, no, no,
So
no.
when Paul said it was their last song, the kids were like, "We got nothing to lose." They're rushing on the field against them. Thousands
Sure.
of kids are screaming across this baseball field towards
Yeah,
the stage.
as a matter of fact, with the recording that I have of the Beatles at Shea, after one of the songs, I have it in my note here. After one of the songs, they're going oh, and I that's when a lot of the fans they broke through the barricades and the fences, and they came out. They were running on the field. You've probably seen this footage,
Yeah,
Dave.
there weren't a lot. The New York cops are pretty tough.
Yeah, they
At
were,
Shea Stadium,
but there were
yeah, they
some
had
girls. There were some girls that got through. Yeah,
there were always one or two or three that would run onto the field and
yeah,
stuff. They could always get through. Um,
yeah.
yeah, and I know the part you're talking about. And yeah, there's also something Paul was kind of encouraging him. And John walks over and kind of tells him to shut up or whatever. Don't do this. You watch that film, and they're doing that stuff. But you know, in Cleveland, I always thought, and the ones I've talked to, it seems like Paul was encouraging them, waving and all this stuff. And John and the girls who got up to the stage, they were right there. I mean, they're reaching out, touching the Beatles and stuff. They said Lennon was just laughing
Yeah,
like, look at this chaos they're doing.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's John, I guess, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was actually after a hard day's night, according to the recording that I have, is when you could hear "oh" kind of thing, and maybe
Mhm.
some was going on, from the audience. Again, this is so historical. I mean, you
Yeah.
talk about history. This was
Hmm.
history that happened, and it only happened once, and it will never happen again, no matter
The
what.
the
It was
planets aligned is what it was. Everything that was going on in the world. I mean, you go back to Kennedy and the Vietnam War and civil rights. You could,
well,
add all this stuff into it, and then you got the Beatles as your outlet, coming
right,
in and playing this music, this
yeah,
soundtrack for
yeah,
everybody that grew up in the '60s. The baby boomers, this is their soundtrack, and the
right.
memories, and really, and even I mean, look, I mean, I always say Jerry G. Some of the DJs I've interviewed say, look at we still have long hair, and it's because of them.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Before that, everybody looked like Dwight Eisenhower. Okay,
right. Yeah, yeah,
after the
yeah,
Beatles, we all looked like Ringo,
that's true. Yeah.
and we still
Well,
do.
there was that whole movement again in 65, the summer of 65, particularly. Not only did the Beatles have their recordings that were coming out, they had, of course, Help, the movie Help was coming out also that summer. So you want
Mhm.
to talk about an incredible synthesis of
Mhm.
media, media bursting forward. I mean, the Beatles' second movie in color,
Mhm.
such a big deal, and
It
everyone was
was.
was waiting for it after A Hard Day's Night. Now, A Hard Day's Night was a masterpiece. Help. And by the way, when I spoke with Ringo, I had him on my radio shows some years ago, and I asked Ringo, I said, "Well, what's your favorite movie?" And he goes, "Oh, Hard Day's Night, because it was the first." And I said, "Yeah, but what about Help?" I said, "Help was pretty much built around you and the ring and the Indians." And he goes, "Yeah, but oh, that was in color, Woo! So it was a
Mhm.
big deal that now that we could see the Beatles in color. But the point is
Sure.
that you had all these things working in tandem. The Beatles are back touring in summer '65. Their hit records are on the, and you know, if not number one, they're in the top five. And then
It was very exciting.
and you had the movie coming out at the same time. There was a
Very
lot
exciting.
going on also, you know, with other acts that were going on, with the whole folk rock scene, which exploded with Bob Dylan and Like a Rolling Stone that summer. You know, that was also going on at that time. So it
Oh
was
no,
a,
that's the whole thing. That summer, I mean, I remember taking a bus to the nearest bigger city towards us so we could go see Help in the theater in
yeah,
color. We
right.
walked in at the time. I mean, you walked in and they were already singing "You Got to Hide Your Love Away." Didn't
Oh,
matter.
really?
We sat
Oh,
down and we sat through that movie. Then we sat through it again.
oh, through
Then
it
I'm
again.
pretty sure we all went down to the we went to a diner. We played Bob Dylan and we played some other stuff on the jukebox. Then we
Yeah.
each bought a copy of Help. We went to the bus station and took a bus back. I mean, those days, you know, it was also like those days to remember too, with the Beatles touring these big cities. Uh, Things were different in the 60s. Parents would drop their kids off in the cities. Mom and dad had no interest in seeing the Beatles. Okay. So they would
Right.
drop their kids off. Kids would go 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old kids. And then
Yeah.
they'd find their way home or they'd meet their parents on the corner of wherever Madison Square Garden or where the Cleveland Arena, whatever, their parents would take them home. So we did. So it was great, great memories. I mean, I would take my friends. We'd be 13 years old. We're going out to buy Help. We're getting on a bus. We did the same thing to get Sergeant Pepper. We rode our bikes, took them home on our bikes, put the needle on and listen to this thing. Like, wow.
Oh
Okay.
God. Yeah.
It's a
Oh God.
whole different thing than what I think, you know, again, it's a once in a lifetime kind of thing. I'm just so happy I was part of that and have
Uh-huh.
those memories.
Yeah, same
You
here. I
know?
feel the
Mhm.
same way, David. Yeah, I mean, it was just something that happened once and it'll never happen again. And of course, the influence that they had, the powerful influence, was unlike anything else because of them and their music and their personalities and the magic that they created. The influence was overwhelming, and it overwhelmed
Mhm.
me, to be perfectly honest with you. You know,
Mhm.
I had to have a band, I had my hair combed down, and I talk
Mhm.
like this a lot. You know, for some reason I don't know why. You know, I start talking like this all the time. You know, so
Yeah.
anyhow, it's still there. And when I listened to the recording of the Beatles at Shea before we did our interview today, I was just sitting here and I was completely blown away again. It's like the energy level that happened. You can understand, you know, why John Lennon at that time. But the funny thing about John Lennon at that time, which you probably know about, but most people don't, is that he wrote the song Help for the movie, right? And
He
so,
wrote it for himself. He
so
was
yeah,
expressing
yeah,
his own.
yeah. But then the interpretation is that he's trying to help Ringo because Ringo needs help, right? From the Indians because the Indians are trying to get the ring and they're trying to
Right.
kill.
That was the idea when the movie came out that we read into it.
But that's not what the song is
Right.
all about. Because
Right.
anyone in 1965, no one, no one, including Paul McCartney, I'd go that far, would ever think that John needed help because he was on top of the world. He saw the top of the mountain, he was on top of the world. But that's not true. He was actually crying out for help and nobody knew it except him. I don't even think Paul knew, to be honest with you. And that's a
I
really, really interesting point.
Yeah. I can't speculate on that. I mean, I've read everything since he was crying out for help. It was his fat Elvis period, is what he called it too.
That's what he
And
called. Yeah.
yeah, but you know, as a fan, as a young kid, you don't see that stuff. We didn't see it.
No,
Brian
no, no,
Epstein kept
no, no, no.
everything hidden.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm
Yeah, it
saying.
comes out later.
No one knew that at all. No,
Yeah.
no, but he
Hmm.
was, you know, he was the one who wanted all the fame and fortune. That's what he wanted. We're going to be
Let's get rich.
the poppermost. Yeah, he said
Hmm.
that. And now that he had it, it was like he felt trapped by it in some respects. You know, he couldn't walk on the public streets. That's one reason why he loved living in New York City when he could just go to Central Park and walk without security guards and all that. You know,
Hmm.
so I think that there was something about him, you know, not being, shall we say, as happy as he thought he would be by being this super giant music star kind of thing when he wrote the song Help. The lyrics are, well, they speak for themselves. Anyhow, I thought I would toss that out. So
Okay.
how
Yeah,
are you doing, Tom? What's up? What's going on, man?
I'm listening to a an ebook of the John and Paul A Love Story, like the book that just came out. And I'm
I'm
sorry,
listening to that myself, ebook. I'm walked on my walks and I'm listening to that. Just started 2, 3 days ago.
very pleasant, but I'm not really picking up anything new that I wouldn't
Hmm.
be able to do myself. And it was recommended to me as like, oh, this is really interesting. And it seems that the your Shea book opened up some doors of some new things that a lot of like this the story has some nuance, something different to it. So it's really cool.
Thank you.
As I'm like almost 60, and I must have listened to 5 or 6 books this year or read them, even the McCartney Legacy.
Hmm.
I'm looking for something new, something a gem, something that I haven't like heard before.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool that this Shea story that you have is a different spin, because I'm not really loving the John and Paul love story, because it's not really telling me anything I haven't heard before.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh, so
Well,
I
if
thank you for that.
I say if you're interested, if you got time, I could tell you another one.
We got 4 minutes.
4 minutes. Okay. People don't know this. I grew up in a place called Vermilion, Ohio. It's just west of Cleveland. We're up on right on Lake Erie, right on the shores, and easy to. If you heard of the amusement park Cedar Point with the big roller coasters and stuff, that's where I am. Anyway, so we're between Cleveland and Detroit. Now, in 1966, on Saturday, August 13th, the Beatles performed 2 shows at Olympic Stadium in Detroit, Michigan. Okay, when they left, it's not like today where everybody has private jets and all that stuff. They went out of Olympic Stadium, which is an indoor arena. They got on a Greyhound bus with all the opening acts sitting there. And they headed south from Detroit, took a left to go east on the Ohio Turnpike. Okay. In 1966, on the Ohio Turnpike, there was a rest area called the Vermilion River Plaza. I just said I grew up in Vermilion. It's my hometown. About 10:30 that night, 11 o'clock, the bus pulled into the Turnpike Plaza. It stopped and everybody got out. And the Beatles and the Remains and the Circle, whatever, they're having cigarettes. George Harrison's sitting on a curb. He's got a towel over his head. He's sweating from Detroit. People walked by, didn't even know who these guys were. Okay.
Hmm.
And I found out about this because I interviewed Bobby Hebb, who had the #1 song "Sunny." He
Sonny.
remembered stopping somewhere. That's what he could remember. Then I interviewed Barry Tashian, who was the leader of the Remains. He had that in his diary. It's in a book called Ticket to Ride by Barry Tashian. It's in there. Stopped at the Vermilion River Plaza, cigarettes. Brian sent Wendy, his assistant, in to buy ice cream bars for everybody. And then I found a carload of girls that followed him from Detroit. And mommy drove, and they all got autographs in Vermilion, Ohio on Saturday, August 13th, 1966. My hometown, I was about 2 miles away. If I'd known that, I could have jumped on my bike and have been there. A lot of people don't know that story. It's in Barry Tashian's book, but it's also in mine. And I
That's
thought,
great.
how cool is that? So I tell people when I do my programs, my hometown, there were the Beatles that
Nice.
Saturday.
Yeah, that's a real nice personal story you got there,
Yeah,
Dave.
yeah.
We got,
It was one of fun things. I like telling those things. Little insider scoop.
got a
Sure.
minute to wind it down.
Okay, guys, how
So,
are we
Dave,
winding it down? Thank you.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's been great, absolutely great, and hopefully we can maybe chat again sometime if you're doing another book or something. But also, what do you are you? I know you're busy doing shows and stuff like that. So we just wanted to thank you for being on Come Together and wish
Yeah.
you all the best. And thank you, Tom Gauker, for, of course, being with us today as well. And carry on.
All right. I want to thank both you guys. I had a really nice time talking with you. Both very, very fab. Let me do that. Okay.
That's great.
See you
Do one
Thank you.
of
later.
these. All
Bye
right,
bye.
guys. Thank you. Bye bye.
Cheers. Bye bye.